T. Sad day, really sad day. You could probably tell from Adam's expression. So we're on the sofa with the great Adam Gray.
And me as well.
No, I pointed to you. And the great Alex Abbott, co-presenters.
Bearded sales guy.
Bearded sales guy. Why do they call you that, by the way?
I don't know. It might be something to do with his facial hair.
Oh, we're in order again, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, starting with the
moving
maturest.
swiftly on, because we're not going to be talking about facial hair today. But sad. Why is it a sad day?
Well, it's a happy day, actually,
Well,
because we're wrapping up the first series. So it's the end of 2023, the end of the first series of Sales TV. But it's not long until the beginning of the next series of Sales TV. So it should be a happy day. So we can recap on what's happened over the last year.
We can indeed. So spoiler alert, when does series 2 start?
9th of January.
9th of January. We already have the guests piling up and the interesting topics.
We do, but we could always do with some more.
So people out there, if you want to be a guest on Sales TV, please do let us know. We'd like in this session for the next kind of 25 minutes to just riff with you guys as to the great things that you found out in series 1. And so therefore, I'm going to ask one of you, then the other. Give me a highlight that you had in this series.
Frankly, there have been lots of highlights. One of the things that I've found is that every guest that we've had on has brought something new and some new insights. And, I like to think that I'm reasonably well read about all the stuff that's going on. And each time, whether it's a guest that I've really gelled with or a guest that I haven't gelled with, it's been like, yeah, that's really smart. So I think that there were some insights from Tias, really interesting. Matt Dixon, really interesting. It's been fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Superb. And Alex, come on, give me the start of 10. What was your pinnacle?
Well, I have to say that I'm astonished when we first started this, and if someone had said to me by Christmas, because we started this summer, beginning midsummer. If someone had said to me, you'll do 57 shows and have more than 25 guests on a podcast by Christmas, I would have said no way.
You would have laughed at them.
I would. I would. And to think that's what we've done now. We've had, 57 shows, 36 guests across the morning show, the afternoon show, and the marketing edition. Highlights? Well, apart from spending time with you wonderful gentlemen.
That's an obvious one, though, isn't it?
You know
what?
Didn't need to be said, really, did it?
Thank you. Always nice to get that adulation first thing in the morning.
Yeah. I think Lawrence Wayne O'Connor and talking about deliberate practice, burgers. I know how hungry that made you feel on that morning, Andy. Matt Dixon has to be a highlight, and the jolt effect, and such detailed analysis that he'd done with such a large group of salespeople. It's fact. Who else? Lee Ashton. I thought Lee Ashton was good. But I have to say, in terms of who brought the most energy, it was Andy Bounds.
Yeah, good old Andy. And the afters.
And his 97% proposal conversion rate. Which I thought was crazy. And the simple thing he does is he agrees everything before he sends in a proposal.
Yeah, simple. I thought that was great, and that one word's not left me. The afters. It is tremendously simplistic as a concept, but actually hugely effective as well.
Yeah.
What happens after you've left, and if you can't articulate that, then why? Did anyone bother?
It's funny, isn't it? Because as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about all of the different guests that we've had on, and I'm thinking, and then I was thinking neurodiversity and Becky. Just
our most popular show. 2,500 people viewed that show.
Absolutely phenomenal. And what was really interesting about that was that the debate that and the aha moments that stimulated amongst us in the studio when she was speaking. Just breathtaking.
It just goes to show how many people, including myself, feel like there is some difference with the way you learn, and actually it's not a bad thing. Whether you're a visual learner, whether you're whether there is something wrong, and you do have a something like ADHD, which I think Becky suffers from. The fact that she's able to talk about it in the open quite proudly and bring others in and establish whether or not they might have a slight learning difficulty, and they need a bit more time, a bit more patience with their learning.
I think it's often forgotten, isn't it? And we talked about it last week, that it's the human element of sales, that it's a social science. It's now a science that's being taught in a lot of universities around the world, increasingly here. But it's the human element that I think we consistently forget. And to your point, humans are different. They're tremendously complex and different, and therefore need to have their own needs and their own ways of developing addressed and supported if they're going to be the best versions of themselves that they can be.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is that, you know, we've had this fantastic breadth of guests in, and, you know, you listen to Andy Bounds and you're kind of going, yeah, you're absolutely right. And then you listen to Matt Dixon and you go, yeah, you're absolutely right. And then you listen to each of them and you think, yeah, this person has got the key. And I think it's just occurred to me with you saying about we're all human, we're all different. The job for everybody in their business and probably personal lives as well is to watch the Andy Bounds interview and go, I'll have that bit. And to watch the Matt Dixon interview and go, I'll have that bit. And watch this, and I'll have that. And build their own version of what is going to work for them as an individual. Because I think one of the problems with human nature is that, as per a guest that we had on one of our other podcasts, it's a fundamental human trait is to be lazy. It's a competitive advantage. You know, you walk the shortest route if you possibly can. And actually that is programmed into us at a very base level. And the problem is I want to see you being successful and then I just copy what you do. But that isn't the route to success. The route to success is look at the elements of what you do that make that successful and go, well, these two will work for me and these two of yours will work for me and these ones of his and hers will work for me. And building my own unique map and process for what's going to work for me, rather than just trying to blueprint your route to success. And that, I suspect, is why when people read a sales book, The Secret of Successful Selling in 2023, actually they copy it and they're not successful.
Yeah.
And it's because they're not actually creating anything. They're not dovetailing that in with who they are. What they're doing is they're just saying, well, I'm just going to lift your good ideas. It's like doing a cover version, isn't it?
I think if you asked every successful salesperson out there what makes you successful, it'll be that. What were the bits that you took from each thing in your career, each course, each methodology that you were exposed to? So I know for myself, you know, I did Miller Heiman training.
Other brands are available.
But you know, there was a bit that I took from that, a bit that I took from Keith Eads emotional selling, bits that I took from spin selling, bits that I took from Challenger, that make up the way that I do things, and I'm sure it's the same for everyone else. It's a really good point.
Yeah, and I think that as you know, you and I and you in part, we train people. We train people how to sell as part of what we do. And the challenge with that is that you lay out your process to somebody, and some bits of it they are able to adopt and absorb really easily, and some bits of it are completely alien to them. And no matter how you try to open that door for them, they can't walk through that particular door. And actually, maybe part of the success is that we don't force people through that door. We say, you know, this is the challenge that you need to overcome. And here's a list of 1,000 ways that you can overcome that. You need to work out the one that works best for you rather than the one that works best for me.
Yeah, it's all about cognitive learning theory, you know, and how do you basically look.
You sound like an academic when you say words like that.
I sound like one. Unfortunately, my supervisor would tell me I'm not a good enough one. The reality about it, though, is actually, I think, not that people are inherently necessarily just lazy per se. Everyone's really busy now. And in the old days, you used to have time to, you know, think forward to what's going to happen in a meeting and project who the potential stakeholders were and what you were going to be doing and your almost your meeting plan. And then you'd come back and you'd go, how did that go? what did I do? What was great? What were the next actions? How do I follow up on that? And I think everyone's got so tremendously busy. That space for thinking is evaporated away.
Yeah. And it's this, I've got pictures of burgers in my head again, because it's that whole Big Mac versus gourmet burger analogy, where businesses are trying to kind of train everyone to create Big Macs, but then the quality drops, when actually leaders should be coaching individuals to help them create their gourmet burgers.
Yeah, and maybe as we look at that, we've seen this thing that is repeated throughout the 57 episodes, which is it's about the people.
Yeah.
You know, we've not had someone come out and go, you know what, you've got to buy this platform because that's the single most competitive thing that you can do to differentiate yourselves and set sales. It's we've not really unpacked, but it's always been about the people. How do the people do really well? How do we create an environment for them to flourish, create some amazing relationships with customers, find the solutions to customers' problems? And that's we've not maybe made that an explicit, but is that the summary for for season one? Is your competitive advantage is your people, but we don't necessarily focus on them like we should.
Yeah.
Well, not the competitive advantage is your people. Your competitive advantage is you as an individual.
Yep.
And I think that you talk about people being busy now. I think yes, that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is you can't plan that meeting out. But also part of the problem is not the problem, but part of the landscape now is that once upon a time you would go into a meeting and you would have a few things up your sleeve. You'd say, I've got something for you, and you'd pull the rabbit out of the hat, and the client would go, whoa, that's amazing. And what happens now is you pull the rabbit out of the hat, and the client goes, yeah, I know, I've already read that. I've got one of those. And you go, oh, right. And it's almost like at every juncture, the aha moment that you're going to have is not the surprise and the great unveil that you'd hoped for, because actually all of the stuff that we're all selling, all of the products that are out there are all commoditized. All of the information is out there on the internet, and there's a reasonable chance that the buyer will have consumed much of that. So it is, and we always say this, it is about you, isn't it? Why are people going to buy from you? Well, because they're passionate about rugby and you're passionate about rugby. And that's the starting point. And it's the starting point because you build a relationship. And when you build a relationship, you're not just a salesman peddling something. You become a friend and a confidant. And I know that I can trust you and I like you. And that means I listen to you. And it means I believe you when you speak. That's where the battlefield is, isn't it?
So as we think about season 2 and we head towards the new year, should the focus be one where businesses are really they really care about the individual learning of their people to develop core skills? So I'm thinking, we were talking the other day about the Sales Masters program and how good sales training is becoming. I see that in a bucket that is developing the individual skills. And then you've got these methodologies that almost try and do two things, these sales methodologies where they give you skills and force the execution in a certain way. And I think what we're saying here is it's all about the individual, giving them the core skills they need, and they develop their own approach that works for them, now that buyers simply don't want a cookie cutter approach and struggle to see any differentiation in a business's value proposition. It's about the person.
Yeah, I think that's right. I do think though that sales methodologies they're this top level thing, aren't they? So all of them talk about why buyers behave the way they do and why you need to dovetail into those buyer behaviors and those buyer belief systems. And that's very generic strategic stuff. The more tactical, practical stuff is stuff that sits lower than that. That's what you actually do. And some of that is around, here's the process. And some of that is around, these are the words that you need to use. And when sellers get that right, so they understand the challenger sale, they understand what the process of that is, they understand what the belief system of that is, and then here's how I execute on that. I typically say to you, well, that's all well and good, Andy. Whereas he doesn't say that's well and good. He says, here's something you might want to consider. Now, that's the individualized bit, isn't it? That's the bit which plays to who you are and who I am.
Yeah. Or the individual is sensing the moment and then adapts their narrative based on the moment. And I'm thinking of the jolt effect now when, you know, Matt talks about the most successful salespeople seem to be the ones that sense how the buyer is feeling, and they adapt their approach there to give them confidence, as opposed to dialing up the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
So I would completely and utterly agree with that. But there's in my own kind of like work that I've done, there was a great couple of people called Romain, and they looked at all of the possible antecedents of being adaptive, ingredients.
In English?
What makes you adaptive as a salesperson? And they looked at things, and really you can bucket it into like 3 phases over history. The first one is you basically needed to know about, you know, your company and your product. Then you had to move on and understand your customer and your market. And then this third bit that's really come out in the last probably 15 years, which is you've got to know yourself. You've got to know the inner self. You've got to know your customer. And there is things like religious orientation, servant leadership, quiet ego. I've got enough of an ego to take a knock when I don't get the deal, but I haven't got so much ego that I completely take away the space for a customer to be themselves and to actually show the emotions, empathy, trust, all of those things. And actually that it comes back to those are the bits that are inside you as a human being that makes you different to the next human being, and how you tone those up and tone them down and connect, and what your common interests. You know, you mentioned the rugby. If somebody talks to me about rugby, I might not agree with them. They might support a team that I don't support. But actually I start to go, I can have an interesting conversation with you. And you know, I think we talked about it in one of the episodes, is relationships selling dead? Well, no,
it's the very core to being human and building that trust, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Challenger almost killed it. The way Challenger came across and said, well, it's not necessarily a good thing if you're a pure relationship builder. Which
it's fascinating, because if you think about, I once had a chat with Neil Rackham. He was the patron of the organization we set up, and he openly says if he had his time again, he would not have written the forward to the Challenger sale in the way he wrote it. And we never asked Matt, but if we had and said, is that the one book that you are completely, absolutely home down and comfortable with? I bet you his answer would have been no.
No.
The jolt effect, absolutely. I thought the Challenger customer was brilliant.
Well, they admitted their mistake almost in the Challenger customer in terms of building consensus. You know, in the Challenger customer, it was about building consensus, and you would do that on a one-to-one basis almost, with each stakeholder influencing the purchase decision. But then the Challenger customer said, well, hang on, when you do that, you actually decrease the chances of winning the deal when that committee comes together, because they're still making decisions based on their own mind map. And actually the Challenger customer is saying, get everyone together in a room and have the opportunity to discuss openly about the purchase decision based on the actual criteria that was created to base that purchase decision on, not allowing each stakeholder to kind of use their own mind map to influence the decision.
Yeah. What are the audience saying?
Yeah, well, there've been quite a few comments that I've popped up, but I was thinking about, for season 2, what insights are we trying to share with our audience, and what insights do our audience want us to share with them? Because I think that you know, we are talking at a very abstract level a lot of the time. So we're talking about building consensus within a customer. We're talking about building rapport. We're talking about forming relationships. We're talking about all of these things which people understand at a conceptual level. So I want you to build consensus in this customer. So what are you going to do? And actually, I think that a lot of the challenge that we face now in the sales industry is that the people that understand here's how you undertake those tasks and those objectives, those are the people that are sitting at 120% of their number, either individuals or teams. The challenge for the sales industry is not those people. The challenge is the 80% that are not sitting at 120% of their number. And I think that I remember when I was first selling, so I began selling hi-fi, and
Sorry, what's one of those?
yeah, how the world has changed. So I began selling hi-fi, and I was a passable shop person. I won't say salesperson. And I went away on a sales training course, and I've told this story to many people since. Went away on a sales training course, and I didn't understand the process of closing. I said to the sales trainer, so how do you get somebody to buy? How do you wrap the deal up? And he said, so what you do is you just ask them for the deal, and I said, so what do you say? He said, well, no, I just asked them for the deal. And I said, no. What do you say? And he said, I say, should we go outside and sort out the paperwork? And I thought, okay, I'll use that as my clothesline. And I did, and I became the most successful salesman in the hi-fi industry in the UK, because I just used to say that to absolutely everybody. Because, we get to a certain point, and then I'd say, so should we go outside and sort out the paperwork? And they will go, yeah, okay. And get them to sign on that. Now, my point is that that worked for me, and it worked for me because when I'm asking you for a date, that's very nerve-wracking for me. I'm putting a lot of my soul into that. When I'm just reading somebody else's line, it's very easy for me because I haven't got any investment in that. And little tools like that we can share that can help salespeople action what it is that they need to do. So not talk about, you need to build rapport. Okay, here's how you build rapport. Maybe we should be sharing things like that. Top tip for the day, things like that people can watch the show and then immediately go away and try that in the meeting that they're going to have today, if they've got a meeting today. Because I think that a lot of the challenge that we have is that, not us, but salespeople, is that they don't have the traction. They don't have enough opportunity to develop these tools for themselves. If you've got 20 meetings this week, it's a piece of cake for you to work out what it is you're going to say. If you've got one meeting this month, you haven't got the runway to experiment with different things. You have to make that a success. So maybe we can offer some help there for people.
Yeah, a comment here from Neil Johnson. More practical advice, hints, tips and hacks would be great, Adam Gray. Make Sales TV Live the place to come for advice and support on any, in block capitals, selling issue.
Yeah, I mean, we would really like to make this the go-to place for salespeople, where they can come here and they can leave inspired and educated, but also with some tools that they can go away and deploy immediately.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Neil Johnson, and Nigel Patrick and Mark McDermott. Keep the questions coming, keep the thoughts coming, because a big part of this is about you guys, the audience, and giving you what you want. So let us know in the comments.
Yeah, I think we certainly should do that in season 2, and maybe have a little bit of a format where we focus in on those things. I think the underlying thing is, we've got to encourage people to have a bit of space, slow down in order to speed up. What was it the Navy say? Carry on and wait, or hurry up and wait, isn't it? Or something like that. So
wasn't that Debbie Harry that said that?
Who again? That's your hi-fi kind of word, isn't it? Again.
Yeah.
But just talking to you, it's interesting. My wife emailed me the other day and said, "Oh, do you want to go to the ABBA show?" Again, other bands are available, but at the O2. But you just mentioned a hi-fi, and I can remember as a kid, my parents would get off the LP, dust it down, and I listened to Waterloo, and it was one of the fundamental things growing up as a kid in the 70s and 80s. But now you've got a hologram show.
Wow.
And it's meant to be brilliant. I'm really looking forward to it. But that's how quickly the world has moved on. We talk about spin selling, and you talk about that in the concept of, good old Neil Rackham went to something like 2,300 sales interviews, sales kind of meetings with his team and actually sat in on each one, which physically meant getting on a plane. You know, it was a passion. It was multiples of years. You know, good old Jim, you know, Matt Dixon does what 8.3 million tests of his program and his model in about 6 weeks.
Yeah. Wow.
And you know, not great, massively scientific, but just in 3 decades, 4 decades, just what's been able to have been achieved in sales research and sales methodologies, but just the way technology is changing things. We've got no idea what's going to happen in the next 2 years.
No, but I love the fact, as you said, you know, we can collate that information really really quickly and effectively. Because one of the challenges that we all have is that we all are in our own kind of swim lane. So typically, you know, you talk to a sales team and you say, what's your success rate when you pitch? And they go 80%. And it isn't 80%. And it's not that they're lying, it's that they remember the successful ones and they don't remember the unsuccessful ones. So actually it's 20% or 30% is the actual success rate. And I think that all of us, you know, we build our model of how things work and we work really hard to kind of refine that. And then we've got a lot invested in it. And we think, okay, that's the way forward. And I think the beauty of what Matt Dixon has done is he can say, well, actually, that's all well and good, but that's not true. This is what's true, evidenced by the fact that there's a big difference between what should work and what actually works.
Yeah.
And you know, for all of us to be very agnostic about this and to be very pragmatic and say, you know, I think this is my starting point, but actually this has turned out not to be the right way forward.
Yeah.
What we need to do is ABC, because that's what might work.
Yeah, that's true.
Couple more comments with 2 minutes to go. From Sean Robertson, an open platform like this for sales professionals would be tremendous. I am in the brewing hospitality world and we all need to be transparent about the challenges. There's a few typos here about the challenges this presents, I think.
He's in the brewing industry.
Yeah.
It's probably started earlier.
He
or
does say-
it was finished late last night. Yeah.
Excuse typos, but thank you, Sean. And then we have Mark McDermott say, perhaps ask sellers to share sales scenarios in advance of the broadcast that can then be discussed.
That's a really good idea.
Really good idea.
Thank you, Mark.
We run a bit of a clinic. So, guys, it's been wonderful to share the sofas with you.
Likewise.
You know, the evolution of this whole thing has been brilliant.
Yeah.
From I can still remember some of the earlier conversations we had about this, Adam. Some thank yous. Thank you to the Turner Grenfell studio.
Yep.
Thank you to Marco. Thank you to David. Thank you to Toby. Thank you to Chris. Thank you to Robin. Brilliant to have Cranfield host us here, and we hope we deliver back to Cranfield as well, which is brilliant. What we want to say to you, the audience, is it's not a lot without you. So as we come to the end, what we want to is wish you, wherever you are around the world, a wonderful festive season. We hope that you have a safe one, some really cool time with your family. We hope that the new year and passing into the new year is a positive one for you. And we can't wait to see you on Series 2, where we will take this from what was really an experiment and a flight of fancy to that next level, working with our partners, working with, obviously, Rob over in the US and some more presenters coming on. Thank you. Great Christmas. Great New Year.
Bye all.
Thank you.